my fellow board members on that.
Well, and since you said alphabetically, I am madly trying to come up with some.
Well done, Gina.
Hurry up, Gina.
Gina, could we do that chemistry experiment?
That's a fun experiment. There's no
That
question
is,
about it.
yeah. You caught my attention. Kids would love that.
Okay.
All right, I think we're all set.
Okay.
Josh, if we're good,
Josh?
let's start the meeting. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Richards. I am chairing the meeting for this evening. Jenny is Patterson. President Patterson is attending her son's graduation, and we all congratulate her son Eli as well as the entire family. I'd like to call this meeting of a special board meeting of the Concord School Board to order. Let me first read our emergency meeting statement. Jennifer Patterson, the president of the Concord School Board, has found that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. The business we intend to conduct today is necessary to enable the public to meet Kathleen Murphy, our candidate for the interim superintendent for the 2020-2021 school year. Please note, there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. However, in accordance with the emergency order, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone. In additional meetings, we are using Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: area code 925-391-1169 and entering conference ID number 974-341-727, followed by the number sign. And by clicking on the link provided on the sau8.org website, or by watching the meeting on CCTV's educational channel, Comcast Channel 6, or www.youtube.com/ConcordNHTV. A recording of the meeting will also be posted on the CCTV website. The board does not intend to take public comment during this meeting. However, we will allow the members of the public to ask questions for Ms. Murphy to answer by unmuting our lines one by one, and Jack Dunn will be controlling that a little bit later on. We will take public comment on Ms. Murphy's nomination at our June 1 regular monthly board meeting, and we also encourage the submission of citizen comments via email at concordinfo@sau8.org. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Microsoft Teams or telephonically. The meeting and pertinent instructions were posted on the website of the board at sau8.org more than 24 hours prior to this meeting and are highlighted at the top of the website. If anybody has a problem, they should please call 603-513-9008. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be immediately adjourned and rescheduled. So let's start the meeting by taking a roll call of attendance. Please note that all members will be participating remotely, and any votes that are taken during this meeting shall also be done by a roll call vote. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. And as always, please mute your microphone when not speaking and wait to be recognized if possible. So with that, I will call the roll. Ms. Cannon.
I am here and I am alone.
Thank you. Mr. Croto.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Mr. Crush. I don't think Mr. Crush is here. Ms. Higgins.
I'm here and alone, looking at the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Mr. Parker.
Yep, I'm right here out on the porch and I'm alone.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Ms. Poinier.
It looks like Liz got bounced off. You may want to come back to her.
I will come back. Ms. Smith.
I am here and I'm alone.
Thank you. Ms. Patterson, the chair is not present. My name is Jim Richards and I am here and I am alone. Liza, have you joined? Okay. Can we have anyone from the district or central office staff that are present, please identify themselves.
Donna Pally's here.
Thank you, Donna.
Jacket is here.
Chris Gallo from Krista McAuliffe.
Anyone else from the central office staff or the district?
Principal at Runlet.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I will ask one more time if Liza has been able to join us again. All right. Well, if Liza joins us, we will note that in our minutes. At this point, I would like to pass it off to Jack Dunn from the administration, who will introduce Kathleen Murphy. And at this, I would like to thank the Jack and the rest of our ad hoc committee for identifying our interim superintendent. That would be Barb Higgins, Dave Parker, Jenny Patterson, Jack, and Art Betancourt from NASDAQ. So Jack, I'll pass it off to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Hey, Kathleen, how are you?
I'm
Thank
good,
you for
Jack,
being
thank
here.
you.
For the rest of the board members and the public, shortly after the unfortunate events of this COVID-19, two of our permanent superintendent candidates had withdrawn their petition to be part of go through the Concord School District's process to be a permanent superintendent. So the board immediately reached out to NASDAQ, who had offered to find an interim, and very quickly they brought forward Kathleen Murphy, a group of an ad hoc committee of the board, Barbara Higgins, as you mentioned, Dave Parker, and Jenny Patterson, and they asked myself, Jack Dunn, to be a part of that. Had met with Art Betancourt. He brought forward Miss Murphy, and we had a wonderful conversation last week. And then the board met in non-public with her and had, I think, a very fruitful discussion with her as well. And now tonight we bring forward that publicly. One of the things that Kathleen had asked was to meet with some of our staff. Yesterday we did various virtual meetings with staff. Unfortunately, yes, we could not meet in person, but it was a very worthwhile discussion, and it gave an opportunity for her to engage our staff. So tonight we bring forward to the board and the public, Ms. Murphy, and I'll let you talk about your history. Thanks so much, Kathleen.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thanks to all the board members. I appreciate the opportunity tonight to be with you and to share some of my thoughts and have an opportunity to answer questions that you may have, additional questions, as well as questions from the public. I had a great day yesterday, a meeting with the paraprofessional leadership in the association, as well as the administrative team, principals, assistant principals, special ed coordinators, and directors. So, and then followed with a meeting with the leadership of the Teachers Association. So it was great conversation. I learned a lot. there's such a commitment and a passion for the work that they do every day. You can see it. There's almost an immediacy to it. They were excited, and they are so looking forward to moving forward as a district. And so I think that was very fruitful, as Jack said, and appreciated that opportunity and that he set it up. I also had a chance early on to have conversation with the central office staff. Again, a very committed group, had great questions, referring to experiences, resources, background. Your current interim superintendent, Frank Bass, was as gracious and wonderful and pleasant as always. And so it was a wonderful meeting. And again, another group that I learned a great deal from. So I do have, feel like I have a sense of folks that serve this district. I think that it was an opportunity when Art Betancourt called and asked if I would be interested as I finished up my tenure in Hampton. And I was very much interested in it. In part, I love the city. I spent some time here when I was the director for the Division of Instruction, working with Lionel Tracy and Ginny Barry as commissioners. I worked very closely with them. Love the city, spent a lot of time in the city. So I also am, I love the fact that Concord has always been in the forefront for ensuring diversity in this city. Being a refugee destination brings a wonderful culture and climate to the community that I think a lot of communities could learn a great deal from. So those things really interested me. But I also wanted to be able to help you out. It's probably a very simple message for me, but I saw this as an opportunity to help you. I know the difficulties that the community has faced over the last 3 years. You've had some significant passing of some administrators in your district that has really shaken a lot of folks in the community. You've always had the Krista McAuliffe and the Teacher in Space program and that whole project has always been a part of the Concord culture. And then these last 18 months with the situation that occurred with an employee and has left everyone really sort of trying to find their way. How do we move forward? How do we bring resolution and solution to all of the issues that have surfaced with that particular incident? So I felt like when Art talked to me about the position, and then when I talked to your central office staff and of course the board, I really felt like I had found a place where I could commit to you to support the work that you do in the community as you move forward. I also know that you have a lot of issues that you would like to deal with. I heard a lot from staff and folks about special education and that you're going to be evaluating your programs and looking at them. I think that's a healthy move. I think I would very much feel comfortable in doing that kind of work with you. I also know that you have a middle school project that's on the horizon. And I just completed a middle school project where I did a reconstruction renovation of an existing facility and just finished that and sort of cut the ribbon, if you will, in September of 19. And the other thing that I heard that I think I could lend great support to you is around transparency. I think that people need to understand what's happening. In some cases, you can't always give all the detail, but I think it's important that the communication and the strands of communication and how you communication, that every effort is made to reach out to the public. So I think that having done a lot of that work over my career, that I could certainly help to lead efforts around that area in terms of ensuring good transparency for the community. My background, I've been an elementary school teacher for 13 years. I was an elementary and a middle school principal, worked in central office as an assistant, worked in the city of Nashua for a year as a director for instruction and did all the hiring of new staff for them. Was superintendent of schools in Newmarket. I think I mentioned that I went to the Department of Ed and was the director there for a term, a 4-year appointment. Of late, I've had obviously a 10-year run in Hampton. I started that district. They did not have an SAU. They were a community that withdrew from an existing SAU 21, which many of you may recognize as Winnicott. And the community really felt that they wanted a voice. And so they decided to withdraw. The community voted on it. It was a vote taken as a warrant article. Community withdrew, and they were looking for a superintendent who could start up a brand new SAU. And I did that from every aspect, from the business office to the curriculum to professional development to hiring. Every aspect of it needed systems to be put in place, systems that the entire district could come in as one. Prior to my arrival, many of the schools ran as isolated silos. And it was really important for the board to see that everyone came together and worked as a unit, as one unit under Hampton SAU 90. And, I feel that I'm walking from that position and have accomplished those things that the board set out to accomplish 10 years ago. There's one other really interesting opportunity I've had over the last few years, and that's I'm the commissioner for military. And it really took me out of my comfort zone because I don't have a military background. But I was asked by the Governor Hassan, to be the commissioner for MIC-3. MIC-3 is a law, a title law that has specific rules around the transition of students whose parents are on active duty. And in New Hampshire, and I know you have some students in Concord whose parents are on active duty, and while those students transition, many of them from school to school, there are rules and standards that must be followed. And so I oversee that for the state of New Hampshire. We have a state council, and so we help families, we help military folks. I work very closely with the liaison officer over at the naval base in Kittery. And so it's been a really interesting experience, but it gave me a whole nother look at students who are transient and students who are moving into districts after a number of moves with their moms and dads. So it's kind of a different experience, and I have really enjoyed it. I'm personally, I'm married. I have 2 grown adult children, and I have 4 beautiful little grandkids, and they're all in elementary school, and they're close and nearby, which is really awesome. So I get to see them when I have time, or they come over here and see me when it's okay, when we don't have this COVID-19. So we've had to been very careful, but been a New Hampshireite for all my life. And I have a great deal of love for our state and what our state does and offers, not only in education, but in every other facet of our life. So that's just a little thumbnail of sketch of who I am, and be happy to entertain any questions that folks have so that you can better know who I am. I was so, in many ways, sad that I couldn't get out to the wards and get out to see people and to have some face-to-face time, but the best I could do was meet with the staff, and I will hope that I can, as soon as we get past this pandemic, that I can get out and have an opportunity to meet the community, because that's where the action is, and that's where you want to hear what people have on their minds. So again, thanks for having me, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
Kathleen, thank you very much. We look forward to meeting you face to face. In the meantime, we're just the board is going to have to be satisfied with our remote connections here. At this time, I'd like to ask any of the board members if they have any questions
So
for
Jim,
Kathleen.
if it's okay, I'll go in alphabetical order so that
Sure.
this way it's orderly and I don't have to figure out who's talking. Is that all right? So if I could start first with Gina Cannon, do you have any questions?
I do. So I guess the first question I would ask, with kind of an eye towards the fact that there's public participation, what do you think are the top 2 or 3 things that you really need to jump on and work on right out of the box?
I think from the last 2 or 3 weeks of talking with folks, I mean, I think it's about human connections and relationships. I think there needs to be a bridge rebuilt between the community and understanding the work that's done as educators, and that the educators understand what the community needs. And especially in light of the difficult times that you've had in the last 18 months, I think there's still a lot of healing that needs to be done. And I think there needs to be a lot of conversation. And when I've been faced with similar issues over my career, we engage the community through forums, facilitate discussion, facilitate communication. And I think that's got to be the priority. I really do. And in that discussion and in that communication comes the transparency that everybody's looking for. And so I would say that would be a priority. I think that there needs to be some work around supporting the faculty and the teachers. I think that I heard them yesterday, and they're wounded a bit. They've really struggled with all of this. And so just like we have with children, and we're concerned about the social and emotional being of our kids, if we don't have strong together teachers that are ready to go back into the teaching world and back in face to face with kids, and they're not ready for that, we need to be able to support them. So I think it is kind of about building relationships, making connections, building those bridges, and having a shared understanding of each other. That would probably be my number 1 priority. I have to say that I heard a lot about special education. And so I think that I think the idea that you having someone come in, evaluate your programs, evaluate what you're doing, get community input, I think that's really important. And all of this can be surrounded with a plan. What's the next steps? What is the plans for the next year? I know that your desire is to look for a permanent superintendent, and that should be a priority for the district also. But in the meantime, I think there's some things that can be done now. And one of them, in addition to the social emotional piece, I think the next piece is around the special education programs in the community.
Thank you, Gina. Great. Tom Croto.
Well, thanks. And thanks, Gina. You took my great question, but that's okay. Because I quickly came up with another, and then it was about special ed, and then Kathleen addressed that. So I've been on the hot seat here trying to figure out what to say next. However, I do have one. So Kathleen, once programs have been evaluated, or once they are starting to be evaluated, there's time going on right now. And so September will happen, or EYP will happen maybe this summer. What are the things that you look for that will probably need to be addressed right away? Let's get specific about before the evaluation's even done. In your experience, what are those things you're going to look for right away to find out what's working and what's not working? And then what sort of strengths do you look for as well? So in sum, what are those things that you look for right away that are weaknesses in a district special ed program? And what are those things that look like they're a strength?
Well, I think that the first thing you must do is have a sense of what people are thinking. The use of a survey to make sure that you get good feedback from the parents. We do an annual survey every year. The Department of Ed does a parent survey, but, getting people to do that survey, and then there's a very limited response rate to that. So one, get out and meet with the parents, find out what they want, and even if the program's up and running, how is it going? You have to sort of dipstick, you have to take the temperature, if you will, of what's happening. And you get that from parents, you get that from your teachers. I think there's nothing like observation. I think it's critically important that the special ed coordinators, the special ed directors, curriculum people all take a look and observe that when you're in this business for a while, and I think that you know when you walk into a place, if what's happening is working, and just by the reaction of the kids. And let's not forget to listen to the kids. The students are great. They give you fabulous feedback. I know sometimes teachers are a little intimidated sometimes by the feedback from the kids, but in my experience, it's really helpful. And that happens maybe while the program's up and running, even maybe while the evaluation is going on. But I think those pieces are critical. I also think that when you put in new programs, or you have a project or whatever's happening, you have to make sure that your teachers have the skills. In our business, it is constantly changing. Just look what happened over the last 8 weeks, right? From a face-to-face instruction with kids to a remote learning where you're using technology and you're using all kinds of different platforms and applications and so forth. Then that all has to be, that doesn't just come, oh, I know how to do everything. It comes with training, professional development, and working and coaching. So I think it's a combination of all those things, Tom, that you would employ to evaluate and to see what's going on. I mean, I think that a superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the folks, they need to be out in the buildings. They need to be visible. They need to see and share. And you're not in there because you want to. It's a negative way. It's to be able to improve. What can we do to do things better? And I think that's where you start. Obviously, data is important. Don't get me wrong. I think it's important that we constantly monitor student progress. And I'm not saying just in the fall and then in the spring when they're ready to leave us. I think it's important that our teachers and our case managers and our special ed, those who deliver special ed services, that we monitor student progress along the way. I often say it's like if you don't feel well and you take medicine and then 2 weeks later you still don't feel well, you go back and you get a different kind of medicine to help you. I think it's the same thing with what we do with children. And when we teach something and it isn't working, and after 2 weeks you haven't made any progress, you have to say to yourself, well, maybe I have to try a different strategy. So I think those are ways that you can jump right in and help teachers with those programs.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your answers.
Thanks, Tom. Chuck Crush. I don't think he's on, but I thought I'd call it out. I don't see him. All right, I'll move on next. Barb Higgins.
Hey, Kathleen.
Hi, Barb. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
So my question has nothing to do with any of my focuses on the board. Not to say I'm not worried about money, but we are a very different community. Our school board is autonomous and we're connected to the legislature. So the 9 of us on the board have a lot of control over things like budget and money and where the money goes and how we spend it and on whom we spend it. So what are your thoughts on coming into a district that runs, there are no town meetings here where our votes get overrun by the votes of the citizens, which is a blessing and a curse, quite frankly.
Right.
You have a group of people. So what happens in Concord is you get a lot of strong advocates that really push for their piece of the pie, so to speak. And as a board, we spend long hours going round and round over dollars and cents. So just in general, how do you see yourself working in a district that has this type of setup, and how do you approach the ups and downs of the budget?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to make sure that your public knows your budget. So it's no different. I'm in an SB2 town, right? So the community goes in and votes. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, if they go in and they don't know anything about the budget, it's kind of a bad thing. But if they do, then they can vote, they vote with some information. So I always make sure that like we've done videos. The business administrator and I do a video on the budget. This is the budget. These are the components. We put it up on our cable TV station that the district has, so that the community can better understand that. I visit groups. We have a beach village, Hampton Beach Village. It's the commission down at the beach that takes care of all the beach village. I go down and report out to them. Here's our budget. This is how much we see. These are the critical pieces in our budget that have reflected increases. I think that's, again, I referred back to it about transparency. I think that's really important. I think people have to understand it. And I won't kid you, I'm worried about the next year or so with budgets. We've already begun working with our town manager and budget committee chair. And I know you don't have that particular organization, but we sought out people that are are influential in the community around budget, because we knew that they needed to understand our issues and we needed to understand what was going to happen. Because with the unemployment rate, which is really bad, and what my concern is for any town, any city, is the lack of revenues, because you don't have property taxes maybe not being paid. People aren't able to do that, and that's really there's going to require a great deal of deliberation. I hate to say that to you, but it probably will be when you start your budget, because of this particular situation you're in right now. I really work hard to leverage as many resources as I possibly can. All the federal monies that are coming through, I'm sure you've been appraised of that with your central office staff, and the CARES Act and FEMA, and there's a number of grants out there. The federal grants that came through, the entitlements have given us more money. I know you have received more money. So, you have to use those to help you get through this time. But, I think you deliberate, you develop your budget, and then you get out and you share it with the community and those folks that'll help you through that.
Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate, what I like most about you is your willingness just to say it, and not like take a party line, so to speak. And I also want the community to know that the reference that I spoke to shared very strongly of you, Kathleen, your ability and positive connections with outside of the district people, the legislature and the community leaders and those kinds of things, that you have a strength in communication there and are very effective. So that will hopefully ease the minds of all of us here in Concord.
Well, just to add to that, one of the things that I've been doing is meeting with our state senator and also our representatives in Hampton who go to the House, and we share with them our concerns. So they know exactly, there was some questions around the Title I and Title II and how the equitable piece of that was going to be distributed. We shared that with them so that they understood it and they could work for us on our behalf. I think you have to do the same thing with the folks in Concord. Your senator and your elected House officials.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Barb. Dave Parker.
Kathleen, how are you?
I'm good, David. How are you?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. And
I
maybe
like
see you in person.
I like a lot of what you have to say, because you're a problem solver. You want to reach out to the community, and you're interested in supporting faculty, but you're laser focused on the kids, and you understand special education, and it's complicated. Sometimes it gets complicated around special ed, and that I'm very committed to working with all of the kids in the community. But that being said, as I joined this board not very long ago, I feel like tonight, okay, we have a meeting and it's, viral online, whatever, and we make it accessible, but not that many people show up. I have found that when I put out sometimes questionnaires, 5 people out of 50 might respond. I'm thinking that as a board, or as a community, we need to be more proactive at engaging people, because people don't, in general, I mean, they're probably out barbecuing right now and having a real life, right? You know, we're in here having a meeting, so.
Yeah, I was hoping my husband was cooking supper.
It's 11 p.m. So, what's your thoughts about taking and this board is a great board. I'm not going to be critical of the board, but a board that's been pretty insular, hasn't reached out to the degree I would like to see. How do you move that?
Well, I think I just kind of shared what I think I should do as a superintendent, but you have great influence. People elected you to do a job,
Right.
and the board. And so together, think about how powerful that might be. Together, the superintendent and 1 or 2 board members go to Ward 4 or whatever, go visit. Because here's what I think about, sometimes people won't come to your place. They want you to go to for us to go to their place,
Right.
where they're comfortable.
Right.
Not necessarily, some people don't come to the schools because maybe they had a bad experience at
Right.
school.
We know about
So
that.
you have to change that thinking, and you have to go to where they are. That's why I go to the beach commission, because I love going to the beach, but I also know that that's where they're comfortable.
Right.
You have to do that. Senior citizens, when we were trying to sell the project, I knew the seniors, they worry about paying their bills, right? Their
Like
taxes,
us?
just like everybody else. But they're
Right.
on fixed incomes, and I worried about them. So what I did, I went to them. They had a walking group, and so they met at some at a senior citizen place. So I went to the senior citizen. I then found out another group met at this place called Fast Eddie's, and it was a breakfast place on Route 1. Maybe some of you have been there. And I met with the seniors at Fast Eddie's and talked about the project. Another group met at one of the local churches, and so I went to their meeting that they held in the basement of one of the churches. So I just think that they would not have come to the meeting. I held forums. I had people come to the forums. I will say we had pretty good attendance. When you're building a building, that's pretty, and they hadn't done it in a long time, so it was a big deal. But
Right.
but I have to tell you, going out to them, I know I got some votes, and
Right.
we had to pass a bond by 2/3 of everybody who came out to vote. That's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to their house. They didn't come to my house, if you will.
Thank you. Nice job tonight.
So do you think you'll come and you'll go out to the community? Will you do that?
Oh,
Certainly,
you don't know, David.
I am out in the community, but
I know you are.
but I honestly do think that the models that we have right now as organizations, as boards, when we ask people to come on, the fact that we don't get anybody should tell us something. It should say that nobody's interested. It should say that maybe the mechanism and the mode that we're using for people to access us is, no longer effective or is passé. So I sit here because when you walk out into the community, you hear something very different.
Right.
And so I really would like, this is not entirely about you, but I really don't mind criticism. I want to hear that from people. And I think you're not always going to hear that on a board night where people are barbecuing hot dogs,
Right.
I would rather be barbecuing hot dogs. So,
Right. And whether it's me or someone else that you decide on in next week, the position is like, I said this to you last week, the position is like an ambassador.
Right.
You have to be out there. Otherwise, it's people see it as a closed shop, and it's
Right.
not. But that's how it's perceived.
Well, again, I'm new, so I can say things that people that have been on the board a long time can't get away with. So thank you so much. I think you know me, so I'll leave that
Yeah.
as it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. So we know Jenny is not here tonight because she is
That's
at her
how
son's
it's
graduation. I saw Liza a photo pop in, so she knew she was next in the alphabet.
Yes, I've
Take it
learned
away.
my alphabet. All right, thanks. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Liza. How are you? Good to see you.
Great, thank you. So I was really glad for David's question and for your answer to it. Thank you for that. Because I do think that that's one of our biggest challenges, has been and continues to be, although it's been a little bit better perhaps over the last few months. Can you tell us a little bit more or just kind of expand on what you were talking about with regard to communications? Because there's also that kind of day-to-day stuff with, you know, how does the community, the students and the parents and the seniors and everybody else learn on a regular basis about what's happening in the district, and what are the things that you think are important? Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's no question now. Social media is the big play, right? I mean, you better have a presence on social media. I know some people don't like it; they find themselves exposed in many ways. But social media is the way people are getting information. I mean, my own kids say that to me. They want that's on their phones. They want the information quick, so they know what's going on at their youngster's school, right? I think the same thing plays out for everyone else. I think you have to I use Twitter. If I'm out and about and I see things happening, I take a picture, I tweet it. I just, I think that's a way to share. People love it. And when you have pictures of kids and interacting in school, the likes are incredible. If I sent an article about, some educational article, I don't get as many likes, right? Because they relate to the children. So you use social media. I use Twitter, Facebook. All the schools have it. Post pictures, and I know there's limitations on that. We have to be careful, with some folks don't want, children's pictures and all that. So we have to be very careful, but it's a great tool to get information out. Obviously, we're sending out constant information right now, just keeping parents apprised of all of the issues around the COVID-19. But, it isn't just COVID-19. What about the 8th grade trip that got canceled, right? What about food? How about the parents that might need food, and we're delivering lunches and breakfast to the kids. So how do I get that? So we're constantly sending out information via our school messenger, which gets out to all of our parents. But also the community needs to, you need to reach out to the community. And that's why, as I said to David, when you do those afternoon teas maybe with the senior citizens, or you visit with the town officials, the city officials, I think that's the way you communicate. And it has to be, it has to be focused. It just can't be, generally, you should have topics, you should focus and have goals for your conversations. Critical piece right now. Very, very important.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Liza. Jim Richards.
Kathleen, I'm going to ask what's on the mind of a lot of parents in our district right now, and it has to do with the uncertainty of what fall will look like and back to school in our district. So I just would like to ask you, how are you going to approach this challenge, determine the right look for our district, and launch a successful school year starting in September?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge, Jim, for everyone right now. We're all gathering data and information and trying to figure out what's the right way to go. But first of all, there needs to be the development of a framework that addresses all of the possible scenarios relative to the fall. Do we come back face to face with all the CDC regulations? Do we continue with remote learning? Do we have rolling enrollment. In other words, there's a hotspot. You have to shut down. You have to go to remote learning, and then you can come back. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of rolling thing. And then some kind of a mixed hybrid approach where perhaps you have some face-to-face time where you and with the youngsters, or you have remote. So if you think about those 4 scenarios, and then you have to address all of the issues that are important. I think you have to bring in the community. Oh, I'm sorry, I just lost you. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. I still have
Yeah,
you.
yeah. If my phone rings, it interferes with the message. So I'm sorry. I would suggest and hope that that's happening. I don't know that yet, but in your community, but you need to have a broad array of stakeholders involved in that. And I'm talking about teachers and paraprofessionals and support staff, and obviously your administrators, but you need parents, you need students, and community. Very important. And we have groups right now. We have the deputy chief, we have the assistant town manager, we have the executive director for the Chamber of Commerce, all participating, the director of recreation, a local doctor from the pediatrics. So we're hearing from everybody, helping us to develop a plan. Once we have a plan, a framework, if you will, then we have to go out to everybody. We're posting all that information as we hold our meetings, and then we will reach out to the community, either virtually like we are tonight, or hopefully at some point we could go face to face, although the groups have to be so small. But certainly input, because we have parents that will not send their kids back. They don't feel they'll be safe. We have other parents who say they have to go back. Please take them and take them. Oh, they're not teachers, right? So they're frustrated, and they know how important school is for their youngsters. So we have it all over the place. So I think the most important thing, Jim, though, is to make sure that you have good feedback from all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Kathleen. I think you reassured a lot of people, and I look forward to working with you, or I hope I get the chance to work with you to implement it as we get to a little farther along in the summer.
Right.
Thank you.
And soon.
Thanks, Jim. So Danielle, do you or the baby have a question?
I ditched her for a bit. Actually, Jim swiped my question, which is the downfall of being at the bottom of the alphabetical list. So I'm going to percolate on a new question while we maybe give the community members a chance to ask some things.
Sorry, Danielle, I didn't mean to take your question. I didn't think it would be still there when it got down to my name in the list. So Jack, do you want to start opening up, or at least reading some of the questions?
I am going to share the first question that came in. I guess I'll read it if that makes sense, but you're about to see it pop up in a minute. This email is from Dan. Let me see if I have this right. Yes, I think so. Dan Habib, this was submitted on Wednesday, May 27th at 7:06 a.m. Hi, Kathleen. I'm glad you've been nominated to fill the interim superintendent role. Thanks for your interest in coming aboard. As I'm sure you know, students with disabilities have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and the school shutdown. These students are often particularly vulnerable to the disease because of the underlying health issues. So household stress and social isolation have been particularly high for these families. Additionally, many of the services that students with disabilities and their families rely on, OT, PT, speech, paraprofessional support, individualized instruction, has been limited or at times non-existent. So both academically and physically, this is a group that is unlikely to have progressed academically or physically during the pandemic and may even seen regression from the months of isolation. Many students and their families may not feel it will be safe to return to school in the fall, even if non-disabled students return. Do you have any specific innovative ideas for the supporting students with disabilities this summer and in the fall, and if and when you become the interim superintendent? Thanks, Dan Habib, Concord parent.
Oh, that's a great question. And that's certainly been a topic of conversation across the state with all my colleagues, the superintendents, as well as messages from the Department of Education, as well as the executive orders from Governor Sununu around this issue. It is a concern for everyone. We are very concerned about the regression that could occur or did occur, may occur, whatever word you want to use here, around students with learning challenges, as well as physical challenges. We have, I believe that we can employ, utilize a variety of strategies to address the youngsters. We can bring those youngsters back into school this summer. And I think if we create small groups in a safe environment for the youngsters, that may be possible. We do have to evaluate whether our staff is willing to do that. Let me give you an example. One of the areas that I feel has been very difficult is physical therapy. A lot of our youngsters need physical therapy. I mean, you can't do physical therapy much remotely. And so I believe that bringing in the physical therapist and the student for their therapy is important. I think the youngsters need it to not have those therapeutic sessions since March 16th, I believe, is really going to be very difficult. And I'm concerned that if we don't provide support for the youngsters, that we will have significant issues around compensatory education and how to deal with that. So I think it behooves us to come up with some strategies. One of the things that we have considered, or that I would like to consider, is there may be some people that are willing to go into the homes. We know that often area agencies have programs, respite programs, where folks go into the home to help parents, give them a respite, allow them to get out for a little bit, and be with their child or their son or daughter or adult person too. So, and so I think that's a strategy that we might be able to employ for those that don't want to return to school in fear they have medical conditions that make them very vulnerable. And so we might be able to employ a team, speech and language, physical therapists, OTs, a paraprofessional who are willing to enter the home and provide those therapies. I think we have to come up with ideas like that, especially with the youngsters not returning. The other thing it's critical that we do some work this summer is we need to evaluate. We need to take some time and try to measure what the losses are for the youngsters. Where did they lose traction and regress? So I think that we need to at least do some evaluation like that. Now we got to be careful about evaluation. You just can't say, we're here now, we're going to give you a test. That isn't necessarily what I mean, but at least have the opportunity for observations. The professional staff is awesome at doing that, and then as the youngster gets used to the sessions, then do some evaluation so that their losses can be measured. I've been absolutely blown away by some of the work of the speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, the things that they're doing online, virtually, face-to-face, using video, and it's just, and the parents are with the youngsters. So that's even better, because then the parents get to see what the youngsters, what the session looks like, and can repeat the session and now have a sense of what the youngsters do every day. The other part about having a team visit the house and be with the youngsters in their sessions is, I think it's helpful for the parents, because I think everything I've heard and as I talk to families, they've been really stressed out by this. And by the way, the parents are taking it personally. You know, when we were talking about grading at the end of the year, you know, their third trimester, you know, many of the parents were looking at it like, if my youngster didn't do well, it was my fault. And certainly that's not the message we wanted to send. But I have to tell you, that's the message that parents are personalizing. And so I think as soon as we can get some professional staff in there to support the families and support the youngsters, the sooner the better, and for me. So
So
I don't know
Kathleen,
if
one of our
that
board
covers
members.
Dan's question, but I'm sorry, Jack.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, you were finishing up.
No, I'm good. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, sorry. So one of our board members, Tom Croto, had a follow-up to your response in that question.
Okay.
So thanks, Jack, and thank you, Kathleen. So this is a question that's been bugging me since I heard the governor's talk about his directives about special education and what needs to happen. And one of the things that I have found that I think is kind of absent that we really need to be aware of, and I've worn a bunch of hats over my years. Years ago was the CEA secretary for the union. I've been an administrator, now I'm on the board. So I really have an appreciation for all aspects. And one of the things I worry about a little bit is that we need to really be sure to keep in mind not only ideas about how we're going to help kids, and that's absolutely what we're all here for, but we also need to remember, how do we go about making sure that our teachers and our support staff, our therapeutic support staff, all of the other service providers are on board with us. And usually that means some sort of a pay or a stipend or summer work. And some of them may be just saying, you know what, I'm really burned out with all of this and I might need some help. So I guess it's not so much a question as it is, you know, we just need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I agree. Do you want to comment, or you good? Our teachers.
No, I think I know what you know, and
they're the heart and soul of the work, right? The teachers, the
right.
paras, the support staff. We better make sure that they're supported. We have a wellness committee going on right now, and you know what our focus is first? Teachers. We want to make sure they're okay, because they have had incredible stress. They worry that they didn't satisfy things. They didn't reach their goals on the IEP, and it goes on and on. I've heard it. And so we better make sure, and we'll have to come up with some good ideas and strategies, but we better make sure that they feel good, because we don't want to lose really talented people.
No, I just felt it needed saying, because there's been just so much talk, and there should be, about how do we proceed this summer?
Yeah.
How do we proceed in the fall? And that's all fine and good. I just, everybody's playing a part here.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, Kathleen, I'm going to move on to the next questions. And these are two-part questions.
Okay.
Let me just share this 1 second. So you're going to see both of them. We'll do the one, and then I'll come back and do the other, if that's okay. All right. So this email is from Quentin Goebel, submitted Thursday, May 28th at 10:35 a.m. Thank you to the school board for allowing an opportunity for the public to weigh in on this nomination. 2 questions regarding student safety efforts for the candidate. 1, we see that while you were superintendent at Hampton School District, you were commissioned and released a redacted report on the bullying incident that occurred in the schools. The Concord School Board has also commissioned a report written by an independent investigator about the Concord School District officials' handling of sexual misconduct complaints against Howie Leung. However, they have refused to release a redacted report to the public and are using taxpayers' money to block that release. As interim superintendent, would you revisit the board's decision and finally offer the community transparency regarding this matter? So right now, I am going to stop sharing that and let you answer it, and then I'll come back for the second question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goebel, for that question. In fact, I did request that an administrative review be done of a bullying incident in the Hampton community. We had, previous to that, held a public hearing on the incident, as well as stage a public forum around racial bullying. In addition to that, I felt that it was important that we do an administrative review in order to examine the responses that we made and how can we improve and what can we do to never let that happen again. You know, you can't always control everything, and I know that, but it was important that we have an outside third party look at our responses. How did we handle it? What did our policies say? What happened and how can we improve? When I received the report back, legal counsel reviewed it. And because there was a lot of information about the students and their families with the dates and times of events and where they were, several of the events happened off campus to this little girl. And so I had to be very careful with you know, the rules around FERPA and, you know, that the federal rules around that. So under council advice, we did redact portions of that report. Obviously, I used the report to begin the appropriate responses, but I did release that report redacted so that we would protect those youngsters involved in that situation. I am not familiar yet with, obviously, I haven't seen the report. I'm out in the community like you. I have no access to that. I think that as we've talked throughout this time tonight about transparency, I think that perhaps there's a way to be able to provide a summary or an executive response to that report without violating personnel rules, student privacy rules to the general public. I would, obviously, you wouldn't have brought it up tonight if you didn't think it was an issue. And so that, you know, I've just made a note that I would want to engage with the school board. I think you probably sense this tonight, that this board wants to take a little bit of a different turn. And so maybe there's some place where the information can be given to the community. But again, you still have to protect personnel. You still have to protect students, and those things can't be violated.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. Let me just share that again and bring up the second question. Sorry, 1 second. All right. Sorry, 1 second. I feel like technical difficulties here. All right, do you see number 2? Based on the 2019 legal settlement, the district is required to provide ongoing, quote, district-wide training for its educators and administrators on best practices in protecting students from educator misconduct and addressing complaints by students and educators regarding potential Title IX discrimination. The district held one of these trainings in the beginning of last year, but that was it. What are your plans to institutionalize ongoing training on this issue for all staff? Thank you. And let me just unshare that screen. and let you respond.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jack. That has, as you know, Title IX just has sent out a new updated federal technical assistance around Title IX from the National Federal Department of Education. And boy, it has changed some of the language from the original Title IX. So everybody is scurrying right now. I know I have. I've looked at several different proposals and just people interpreting the new regulations around this. So I think this is probably a very opportune question to ask right now. The fact that they did have a training last year was fine, but I think that's all going to change. I think there's going to be a need for additional training. And here's my take on training, whether it's the Title IX training or it's training on strategies to implement technology or, pedagogy strategies, whatever that training looks like. Training must be consistent, must be ongoing. I tend not to be, oh, okay, we had one workshop, we're done, check the box, it's done. I think for any institution, any organization, training needs to be ongoing. When we had our situation in Hampton around the bullying issue, our training began last year with summer training of all our administrators, followed up by a full day workshop for every single staff member in the district, followed up by now small group instruction in all of our buildings. And that is ongoing to this day, including things like book reads and the administrators, they have a meeting next month with our facilitator around training. So if you really want to change thinking, change the way that business is conducted, then you have to make sure that you're providing ongoing, consistent, valid training over a period of time. Don't forget, in any organization, the faces change. The people that are there today may be gone tomorrow. So you need to make sure that everyone is exposed, everyone understands it, and has an opportunity to be very clear about policy, procedures, regulations, and how things are going to be implemented. So it's a good question. And again, it's a brand new updated Title IX policy, and everybody is looking at it to kind of figure out what we're going to do next with it. So I agree. I will, if you decide to have me in Concord, then that will be on the list because that's an important one.
Thanks, Kathleen. So now I'm going to move to any virtual questions that we might get through the chat. And I'm looking at it. I don't see anything at the moment. More of it has been comments of people virtually having some struggles or some feedback. So if I don't get anything in the next 30 seconds, what I'll do is I'll move to going down the list of people that may have signed on publicly and see if there's any questions that way, if that's okay.
Jack,
Yeah.
This is Jim. It might be a good idea. Could you read the access number for people to get information to send you a question in case they hadn't heard it earlier?
Sure.
Or don't see it. Thank you.
So if people wanted to send a message to be read, everything's been coming in from concordinfo@sau8.org, and that box is monitored. The executive secretary for the superintendent has already forwarded these emails to us. That's why we posted them tonight. But if there was anything else to come in between now and the end of the meeting, we will bring those on. I'm sure she'll forward them to me. I'll post them in and come back to that. But just so if people want to do that, and they can also, again, chime in through the dialing in or coming on virtually tonight through the link that's located on the website, or again, dialing in through 925-391-1169, conference ID 974-341-727#.
Thank you, Jack.
I'm gonna want my own radio show after this. So let me.
New career.
New message. Hold on, I got a new message. I gotta move down. Okay. And Lyndon has chimed in, and she is monitoring concordinfo@seu8.org, and nothing has come in while the meeting is going. So that's fine. So I am gonna move over to the participants and kind of go down the list and ask them to unmute themselves and maybe chime in if that's okay. So the first one I see is an Alan Party. If you are listening, and I know somebody might be saying I'm listening in the background, and then quick chime in, and they'll be, so we'll give them a few seconds. We won't move on. Please feel free to chime in. I noticed they unmuted, but Mr. Party, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Jack. No question at the moment, but I really like Kathleen's answers.
Thank you, Mr. Party.
Great.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
Mrs. Murphy.
Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to move down. I may call out if anybody else is an administrator just because they're on here, but I'm just going down the board members list. I will also go down through any of our assistants. So I do see Dawn Silly, who is the admin assistant to the special ed director. Dawn, you're welcome to chime in if you wish.
I don't have anything. I just wanted to meet her and see what she had to say. So look forward to working with you if that's in the cards.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. So as I move down the list, I see Kay Fry. Anybody you interested in speaking? Oh, I'm seeing leaving. Maybe she was having difficulty. Well, we'll see. Maybe they were having difficulty, but we'll see. I'll move on down the line. Paula Mercier, if I have pronounced that right, feel free to speak if you wish.
Amazing.
The best is when they're trying to unmute and they can't, or they get frustrated. I've seen that before. Nothing.
I've seen that among board members before, Jack.
Oh yeah. Well, we're well aware of the technological difficulties we've had the last few months, but I've noticed all board members have gotten very confident because they log in at like 5:27. Before it was 5:10. It was very early to make sure they were there. So we appreciate it. But okay, no, Paula Mercier, if I'm pronouncing that right again, I'll try again.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Paula. Some say Mercier, some say Mercier. Depends on if you're above the border or not. I'm happy to just be listening in. So thank you for the opportunity, but I'm good here. Thank you.
I apologize. I just saw your chat, so thank you.
No worries. I just
Appreciate it.
figured out how to give permission in Microsoft.
Other than that, I'll go back to the top just to see. I see Alan Party. He's already chimed in. I do not see anybody else. I'm going to move over to my virtual conference thing to see if, no, I did not have any other items on there. So I guess, Kathleen, any other words before maybe they adjourn?
Yeah, if I could make just a closing remark. I mean, we've talked about, special ed, and we've talked about communication and transparency and training and PD. And I just want to reiterate that, everyone that I've met has been just very professional, really knows their business, really cares immensely about the community and the kids and families. So, that's always a positive sign. And I didn't really share, but I think it's really going to be important to share a light and to shine a light on the wonderful things that happen every day in the community. You know, we said, you know, Concord is somewhat the best kept secret in the state. And so I think it's important that as the board and the faculty, the entire staff build relationships, I think it's going to be important to work together to shine that light on all the accomplishments. You know, there are a lot of accomplishments, and you know, sometimes we all get caught up in just the negative things that happened, and we have to be careful about that. And I would love to be able to participate in doing that and helping people to see what wonderful things go on in the district, because I do hear wonderful things, and I'd like to be a part of it. And if that works, that would be great. But other than that, Jack, I'm good. I don't know. I don't have any other closing comments, and certainly if the board has some other questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Well, Jim, if it's okay, I do see two administrators on. I'll start with Chris Gallo in case she wants to chime in with anything.
Sure.
I'm all set, Jack. Thanks. I had a chance to talk with Kathleen yesterday. It was a great conversation. So good to see you tonight, Kathleen.
Thank you, Chris.
And then Paulette Fitzgerald, if you don't mind. If there's anything you have.
No, but I also had a chance to meet with Kathleen yesterday, and Kathleen, it's great to see you tonight, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Jack,
so Jim, going back to the board members.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Proto has a question.
Yes.
Why, thanks. And I am the one that has the mute button troubles, but Kathleen, just because I know this, and I know that that our board members who vetted you know this as well, but because we're in the public eye and it has been a hot topic, would you tell us about your credentials and what when they expire, when they are, and what you have?
I think I sent you my credentials in my packet. So if I could, I actually have it in front of me because I wouldn't be able to tell you the year. But I have an experienced educator certificate. I have 2 endorsements, a superintendent endorsement as well as a principal endorsement. And my certificate will expire 6/30/2022. So I am good to go, and I have the official blessing from the Department of Ed. You know, Tom, you bring up a great point. I think it is critical. I think it's important. I use the medical analogy about medicine, you know, but when I go into the doctor's office, I want to make sure that there's an appropriate credential hanging on the wall, right? Because that represents a level of experience and knowledge. And I think our teachers' credentials do the same thing, and it elevates their profession, which is really important. So thanks for bringing that up. I think it's an important topic.
It really is. Our public has the right to know that and
Right.
should know it, not only as a right, but just as a matter of course.
I take
So
that.
thank you.
Yeah, I take that very seriously.
So
Thank you,
Jim,
Tom.
I do not see anybody else in the participants, and I don't see anything in the chat. So I'm going to leave it to you now, where to go from here.
Thank you very much, Jack, and very much appreciate your efforts tonight. I'd also like to thank Josh Hardy and the Concord TV crew that every single one of our remote broadcasts and as well as the ones we do, seems like long ago now from a boardroom, have been outstanding, and I would like to thank them. And at this point, I will open it for any other comments or topics from board members. Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. This is Barb.
Thank you, Barb. Do I have a second for the motion?
Seconded by Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Is there any discussion?
No.
Well, in that case, I will say all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
I
Very good. Thank you, Kathleen. Superintendent Murphy, we appreciate your
Yeah.
participation.
Man, thank
Everyone
you.
have a good night.
Thank you all.
Jim, good
Appreciate it.
job with 5 minutes to spare.
Yeah, look at
Good
that.
man. Look
All
at
Nice
that.
job, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Have a good
Great
night,
job,
everybody.
All
Kathleen.
right, talk
Thank
to you
you.
Thanks,
soon.
Jim.
Take care.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jack.
You're
Thank
very
you,
welcome.
Jack. Great
No
job.
problem. Yeah, take care. Great.